Hope you're having a good day today. It's February 6th. We are in the book of Exodus. We're looking at the account when Jethro gives advice to Moses. Verse 1, Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, and how the Lord brought Israel out of Egypt. And so he's coming, and he's bringing Zipporah, Moses' wife, and he is coming to Moses. All right, let's come a little further down, along with the children spoken about. And at a point, Moses is going to be judging the people, sitting to judge the people in verse 13. The people stood before Moses from morning until evening. Moses is, when Jethro sees everything that he's doing for the people, he says, "What are you doing? Why do you alone sit and all the people stand before you?" And Moses says, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one another, and I make known the statutes of God and his laws." So Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing that you do is not good. You're going to wear yourselves out. So I'm going to give you counsel, and if God approves of it, appoint people to oversee these things. Let them judge the people at all times. Every great matter they will bring to you, but every small matter they'll judge themselves." And so Moses heeded the voice of Jethro and did all that he'd said. Moses chose able men out of all Israel, rulers of thousands, hundreds, fifties, tens, and they judged the people at all times. Okay, a couple points I wanted to make about this passage. One is that Moses heeded the voice of Jethro, that Moses needed help. You might think about Jethro. Remember what he is. He's a priest in Midian. So you might think about, he's not a nobody, and he comes and he says, you think about the responsibilities he may have had as priest, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so when he comes and he says, "Whoa, you're in this new role here, and you might want to think about how to do it perhaps more efficiently if the Lord approves of this." And Moses heeded his voice. Moses listened to him. And there's something to be said about Moses needing help. And Jethro gave him that help. His father-in-law gave him that help, gave him good counsel. So Moses ends up choosing able men. He didn't just choose. This was not a random selection. He chose, I believe as it says, let me read, chose able men out of all Israel. Because, again, Moses needed help. He couldn't do everything himself. In the account, actually, I believe it might actually, our reading today is chapter 16 through 19. And it's actually in chapter 17 where they're fighting against the Amalekites, where Moses' hands become heavy. And you have Aaron and Hur, and they sit him on a rock and they lift up his hands, and Joshua's down on the battlefield leading the fight down there. Everyone had to do their role. Okay, Moses needed help. His hands were getting heavy. Well, once again, it's like Moses is sitting to judge all the people, and Jethro's saying, "This isn't good. You're going to wear yourself out. You're going to wear yourself out just like you got worn out back with the Amalekites. You need help." And so there's something to be said about that idea, that everyone needs help. And we think about all the parts of the body working together so that every part does its share. To speak selfishly for a moment, and in the New Testament, when it speaks about let him who is taught share in all good things with him who teaches, you need help. All right, we're all trying to support one another, help one another, encourage one another, do our part, all that stuff. Moses needed help. But I was also thinking about the account because when you really get down to it, let's back up a little bit and let's see where we are. Our reading today, like I said, chapter 16, that's the manna. All right, so they're complaining, we don't have anything to eat, and the manna's given, and they test the Lord once again. But, okay, so the manna's given. Chapter 17, that's water from the rock. Oh, we're thirsty now. Okay, well, now you have food and you have drink. And Israel defeats the Amalekites. Okay, so it's a great battle. And And then we get into chapter 18, and now we're in our account. But see, I guess what gets me is here Moses is, and Moses had to judge the people, and the people stood before Moses from morning until evening. And he says, they're coming to inquire of God. Verse 15. When they have a difficulty, they come to me. I judge between one and another, and I make known his statutes of God and his laws. And if I was Moses, which I'm not Moses, but he's sitting there all day long, and they're bringing all of their disputes to him, and it's like, God's feeding you, God is giving you drink, your clothing's not being worn out. I'm thinking of the passage in the New Testament with food and clothing will be content. Well, they're not content, are they? No, there are so many people who have so many disputes, and I understand they're coming to inquire of God, and I understand the law hasn't been given yet. I understand that. But it's like, what are you guys squabbling about? What are you guys having disputes about? And I don't know what to say other than that's life. That's life. You'd like to say, well, all of these things, they weren't all big issues, because just it's pretty obvious from the language. No, some may have been big issues, but there are a lot of small issues too. And so they appoint those over, the hundreds, tens, hundred, whatever. It's like, guys, really? I mean, we've got food. We've got clothing. The Lord's given us water. We've just had this victory. And all of a sudden we're going to have people disputing amongst themselves to the point where Moses is wearing himself out. That's life, I guess. You would just like to think that maybe they would be content, but they weren't exactly known for their contentment, were they? So, anyway, this may be because we see them, of course, complaining and contending repeatedly. And it's just, to me, I never looked at it from that perspective, that it's kind of sad that Moses, after all of this, that Moses has to sit there. And Moses has to deal with these things. And that's life. That's life. And so he needed help, and he listened to Jethro, and he started delegating things, and you had those who were appointed to help hopefully deal with these issues. But maybe there shouldn't have been that many issues to begin with. Just something to chew on. Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you have a good day, and hope you join us for our next brief look into God's Word.